She took a break to understand herself, but a week later a friend showed me her profile on a dating app. A week after she asked for space to figure herself out, her face appeared on a dating app. The profile was new, the bio was flirty, and the status showed she was active. I stared at the screenshot, my chest tightening. The woman who had claimed to need time for self-reflection had wasted no time at all. The break wasn't about saving our relationship. It was about keeping her options open. Sitting in the gym, phone in hand, I felt something snap looking back. The change had been gradual but obvious. Emma and I had been together for a year, and for most of it, things had been good. We had our routines, our inside jokes, and plans for the future. But in the last few weeks before she asked for a break, something had shifted. She had become distant. Texts that used to be instant now took hours to get a reply. Conversations felt forced, like she was somewhere else entirely. The way she looked at me lacked the warmth I had grown used to. Date nights were filled with silence instead of laughter. Physical affection faded, at first. I told myself it was stress. Work had been demanding for both of us, and maybe she was just overwhelmed. But then I noticed the small things. How she suddenly kept her phone face down. How she avoided eye contact when I asked if something was wrong. How she stopped saying goodnight first. I had brought it up one evening, hoping for reassurance. Instead, she told me she needed space, that she was feeling lost and needed time to understand herself. She said it was about her, not me, and that this was the only way to make sure our relationship could last. I had believed her. Now, staring at the dating app profile, I realized I had been played. Emma had framed the break as something necessary, something that would save our relationship rather than end it. She said she felt confused, unsure of what she wanted, and needed time alone to figure it out. She reassured me that this wasn't about me, that she wasn't looking for someone else but rather trying to understand herself. If we were truly meant to be, she told me, this break would make us stronger. It hurt, but I had agreed. I wanted to respect her wishes, to show that I could be patient and understanding. Maybe she was dealing with personal struggles she hadn't fully processed. Maybe she was overwhelmed with work or life in general. I told myself that if I truly loved her, I needed to give her the space she was asking for. For the first few days, I felt lost. My routine had always included her, texts throughout the day, calls before bed, weekend plans. Suddenly, I had all this empty time. I had to remind myself not to message her, not to check in, not to break the terms of the pause she had asked for. I told myself that this was temporary, that she would come back when she realized what we had. I threw myself into self-improvement. I started hitting the gym more consistently, pushing myself harder than before. I changed my diet, cut out junk food, and focused on looking and feeling better. I even picked up reading again, something I had neglected over the past few months. I spent more time with my friends, the same ones I had unintentionally sidelined because I had been so wrapped up in my relationship. At moments, I even felt good about it. Maybe this break really was for the best. Maybe we had both gotten too comfortable, and this time apart would remind us why we had fallen for each other in the first place. I had no idea that while I was working on myself for the sake of our relationship, she was already looking for a replacement. That screenshot had shattered every illusion I had held on to. The more I stared at the screenshot, the worse it got. Her face, the one I had memorized over the past year, was now being presented to strangers as someone available. The profile wasn't old. It wasn't inactive. It was live. She was swiping, matching, talking to other guys while I sat there like an idiot, believing she needed time alone. 1,000 thoughts ran through my head at once. Had she been planning this before the break? Had she already lined up her next options while I was still in the picture? Was I just a safety net in case her search didn't pan out the way she wanted? I tried to find an explanation that didn't make her look like a liar, but there wasn't one. She had deceived me. She had used words like space and self-reflection, when what she really meant was, I want to see other people without looking like the bad guy. The anger came in waves, slow at first, then all at once. I had spent the past week improving myself for her, for us, thinking that this break was about making things better. I had convinced myself that she just needed time to appreciate what we had. Meanwhile, she had been putting herself out there, meeting new guys, pretending I didn't exist. I clenched my jaw, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers ached. The betrayal wasn't just in the act itself, but in the manipulation behind it. She had given me hope. She had let me believe that we had a future while she was out there preparing for a different one. There was nothing left to salvage. That I knew, at that moment, that the relationship was already over. I just hadn't realized it until now. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Emma had been done with me long before she asked for a break. The signs had been there for weeks, maybe even months, and I had ignored them, convincing myself that she was just going through something personal. But people who love you don't put you on hold while they test out the dating market. They don't make promises of self-reflection while swiping through profiles to see if someone better comes along. I wanted to believe that she had struggled with the decision, that some part of her had meant what she said when she talked about needing space to figure herself out. But the truth was staring me in the face. She had only wanted the space to do what she knew I wouldn't tolerate in a real relationship. The break had never been about fixing us. It had been about keeping me in her back pocket while she explored other options, and I had played right into it. For the past week, I had been improving myself for her, hitting the gym, cleaning up my diet, surrounding myself with positivity, all under the assumption that we would get back together stronger than before. I had been trying to be the best version of myself for someone who had already moved on. The thought made my stomach turn. There was no coming back from this. A relationship built on trust couldn't survive something like this. Even if she came back apologizing, even if she deleted the dating app and swore it had been a mistake, the damage was done. I would never be able to look at her the same way again. For a few hours, I debated whether or not to confront her. A part of me wanted to send her the screenshot and watch her scramble to explain herself. I imagined the excuses she would make, the way she would try to twist it around to make herself the victim. Maybe she would say she never met anyone, that she had been too afraid to tell me the truth. Or maybe she would go on the defensive, accusing me of violating her privacy and making me the bad guy in all of this. It didn't matter. There was nothing left to salvage. No amount of talking would change the fact that she had lied to me, so instead of wasting my time with a pointless argument, I did the only thing that made sense. I buried the relationship right then and there. I stopped checking my phone, stopped waiting for an explanation that wouldn't make a difference. I let go of the idea that she was coming back, that things would ever go back to the way they were. For the rest of the week, I kept doing what I had been doing, focusing on myself, but this time, I wasn't doing it for her. I wasn't trying to become a better boyfriend or prove anything to her. I was doing it because I deserved better. By the time the break was over, and she came back expecting to pick up where we left off, I had already moved on the week past, and I'd barely thought about her. Not in the way I used to, at least. The pain had turned into something else, not quite numbness, but acceptance. I had been played, and there was nothing I could do to change that. The only thing left was deciding how I would handle it when she came back, and she did. Right on schedule. Emma messaged me first, acting like nothing had happened. A casual, "Hey, how have you been?" Like she hadn't just spent the past week parading herself on a dating app. Like she hadn't broken the trust that made our relationship worth anything in the first place. I didn't answer right away. Not because I was unsure of what to say, but because I wanted to make sure I wasn't responding from a place of anger. I had nothing left to say to her, and I refused to waste my time on someone who had already proven she wasn't worth it. Later that day, she showed up at my apartment. She had a way of acting like things were normal when they clearly weren't, and this was no different. She smiled, walked in like she had a right to be there, and started talking about how the break had given her so much clarity, how she had missed me, how she was ready to move forward with a stronger, healthier relationship. That I watched her, letting her get it all out, letting her dig a hole for herself with every lie she told. Then I dropped it. I told her I knew about the dating app, about the profile, the bio, the active just now status. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just stated the facts and watched as her face went from confident to panicked. First, she tried to deny it. Said it must have been old. Said maybe someone had stolen her pictures. But when I told her I had the screenshot, when I told her I had seen it with my own eyes, her excuses crumbled. Then came the next phase, damage control. She wasn't cheating, she insisted. She had just been confused. She had downloaded the app to see how she felt, to test her emotions. It hadn't meant anything. She hadn't met anyone. She was just trying to figure things out. I didn't care. I told her it was over. That I didn't need an explanation, that I didn't care whether she had met someone or not. The moment she put herself out there, she had ended things. I wasn't interested in being someone's second choice and waiting around while they searched for something better. That's when she snapped. The guilt turned into anger, and suddenly, I was the villain. She accused me of giving up on us too easily, of not trying to understand her. She blamed me for not checking in on her during the break, as if I was supposed to chase after her while she entertained other men. She said I was making a mistake, that I was being cold, that I was destroying everything we had built. But she had already destroyed it. I told her to leave. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, but it didn't matter. The relationship had ended long before that moment. She just hadn't realized it yet. After Emma left, I sat in silence for a while. Not because I was sad or regretting my decision, but because I was letting it all settle. The weight of the past year, the deception, the way I had blindly believed in something that had already crumbled, it was all over now. There was no more wondering, no more hoping, no more trying to make sense of her actions. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. The next few days were quiet. No calls. No texts. Emma had made a dramatic exit, but I knew she wasn't done yet. She was the type who needed to have the last word, who needed to feel like she wasn't the one who lost. I expected her to come back with some grand gesture, some attempt to guilt me into forgiving her, and I was right. A few days later, she messaged me again. This time, she was calmer, more calculated. She said she had been thinking, that she understood why I was upset, and that she wanted to talk things through properly. She claimed she had panicked when I confronted her, that she hadn't meant for things to get so heated. She wanted to explain herself. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to explain. I had already heard every version of the truth she could twist into something convenient for her. If I gave her another chance to talk, she'd just try to manipulate the situation to make herself seem like the victim. She didn't deserve that opportunity. I deleted the message and moved on. She reached out one more time, a longer text this time. She told me I was being cruel, that I was throwing away something real over a misunderstanding. She called me heartless for refusing to hear her out, said I was handling this like a child instead of an adult. That was the funny part. She had expected me to fall apart, to beg for answers, to fight for her, to be the one struggling to let go. But I wasn't struggling at all. I blocked her number. The break she had asked for had given me exactly what I needed, not clarity about our relationship, but clarity about who she really was. And now that I saw it for what it was, I had no interest in looking back. Blocking her number was the final step. There was no dramatic aftermath, no sleepless nights spent wondering if I had made the right choice. The second I cut her off, I felt nothing but relief. For the first time in months, I wasn't waiting on someone else's decisions. I wasn't questioning my worth or bending over backward to prove I was good enough. I wasn't holding on to a relationship that had already ended in her mind long before she ever admitted it to me. I had already started rebuilding my life during that so-called break, but now I was doing it for the right reasons. The gym wasn't about impressing her anymore. It was about feeling stronger, more in control of myself. My social life wasn't an escape from the loneliness she had left me with. It was just me enjoying my time with people who actually valued me. And the best part? I wasn't bitter. I wasn't sitting around hoping she'd regret what she did. I didn't care if she moved on, if she tried dating the guys she had been swiping on, if she found out that none of them would treat her as well as I did. That wasn't my problem anymore. Some people might have wanted revenge, might have felt the need to make her pay for what she did. But the truth was, she had already lost. She had lost someone who genuinely cared about her, someone who was willing to work through things, to be patient, to support her. I had lost nothing. She took a break to understand herself, and in the end, I was the one who gained clarity. I walked away without looking back, because I finally realized that someone like her was never worth holding on to in the first place.